getting ready to start the actual 47 seconds. So,
Okay, here we are. It is time for another edition of the Dirty South podcast. Van, how are you doing on this Saturday afternoon?
I am doing well, and I'm eager to talk about All Star Weekend.
It is. It's an all-star weekend in the SIBA, which always brings excitement. I think for a lot of players, it's great because they get to kind of relax and party and just have a good time and not have to worry about games coming up over the weekend, which is always good. And just a time to relax before that big push for the playoffs. And I think it's going to be an exciting push to the playoffs, don't you, Van?
I do. It's competitive, as we previewed on the last podcast, and we're going to talk about again in the next podcast. But we'll save that teaser for later.
Yeah, we can't give out all the secrets right now at the beginning of this one because right now it's All-Star weekend, and we had a thrilling All-Star game in the SIBA, the East versus the West, the classic confrontation. Not yet going to like the World versus the USA yet in SIBA.
No.
Maybe we'll get there at some point, but not quite yet. We actually have a legitimate game, an actual game where they're actually totaled up 15 blocks and what do we have there? 30, 40, 44 steals in the game. So there was some defense being played.
Some defense was being played. At least takeaway defense, the stuff that looks good on highlight clips.
That's right, but they still managed to get plenty of balls through the bucket as the final score was West 151, East 141. A little bit more than your average game, but definitely a pretty competitive game and a very, very good game for what it looks like.
It does. It looks like that. It looks like the competition for MVP had to have come down to the wire as well.
Mhm. It looks like going into the fourth quarter, it was a 1 point lead for the West. So, like, it really did come down to the final minutes of the game. And hey, what can you say? They balled. They balled. Let me tell you.
Yeah, based on our conversations earlier, I think all of us feel like the SIBA leans a little west right now, but the East All Stars showed up ready to play.
It does. I mean, when you look at the best teams in the SIBA, you're going to put. If you just look at the power rankings, the top 4 or 5 teams are all from the West. So I mean, it is one of those things where the West does command a lot. But when it comes down to it, you can only put so many players on the All Star team. You can't just load it up with everybody from the West. So it kind of has a separation there with that. It does make it a bit more
Absolutely.
even.
Yeah, and the All Star game, I think, is the lifeblood of teams like yours that are actually competing. And I think had the score gone the other way, your prime employee, Mace Dean, would have walked away with the MVP.
Quite possibly, he did throw down 35 points, get seven steals in the game, with 5 assists and 4 rebounds, 3 blocks. I mean, he just loaded up. If there's a line in the box score, Mace had something to do in it. By doing his normal 14 for 28 from the field, though, so he didn't like hit every shot, but that's normal for him. I'm used to seeing him throwing up 30 some odd shots and only making 10 or so. So that's a normal box score for me.
Yeah, the thing that really leapt out to me when I looked at it is I thought the center choices between the two conferences were excellent. But who the coaches in this game chose to play the forwards extra minutes and leave a few center minutes unfulfilled. DJ Deng got 30 minutes, but Kristen Winfield Jr., who I'm fairly certain we'll talk about later when we go through who we would have chose, only had two. That leaves a lot of minutes of Dion Nicholas playing center there, and Finn Metternich and Luke Blakemore, which I thought would be the centerpiece of the East team combined for only 40. So
Mhm.
there's definitely some power forward at center minutes in the East as well.
Yeah, they did. Coaches definitely did, and we were talking about that before we went live here. There's just a lot of forwards in general that are in the league. Just a lot of quality forwards, and sometimes there's more quality forwards than there are quality centers. So it's easier for the coaches to kind of put those forwards in there, go a little smaller, maybe add an extra guard, extra small forward in there to do the play to speed things up, to get more of that outside shooting. Um, Maybe that's what was going on in this game.
Could well have been. Or it may explain the pace of the game as well.
Mhm.
I did, as we're going to get to later, have a couple quibbles with the Hal suggestions for who should be all stars and who should be starters, and I
Mhm.
think the people that I excluded proved me wrong tonight. We'll talk more about that later when we get to that part of the show as well. But I
Yeah,
think now we've talked about the lifeblood of the good teams. Let's talk about the lifeblood of the rebuilding teams and talk a little bit about the Rising Stars game.
that's good because we had another great game in the Rising Star. They did put up a whole lot of points though. 158 for the West, and the East got 148. So another 10-point victory on the Western side. Do you think this means that the West Coast, the Western teams are going to continue this superiority going forward?
It certainly makes it look that way to me. I don't know if they're doing better drafting, better trading to get better picks in the draft. They should be picking lower. Well, if you look at the standings, a lot of the tanking teams are Western teams. I think that's part of the things that inflates the win total of the top West teams. Is there's more teams like mine, Calgary,
Mhm.
that are losing every night to the West teams. It may inflate those win totals a little bit. Hopefully, we can pick some players that turn the or keep the West going well there too. But this one also came down to Tomas Jankowskis of San Francisco winning the MVP of the game. That had to be a weight off the shoulders of the San Francisco organization since he was the first pick 2 years ago. I'm sure we're all thrilled to see him put up 23 points and 6 assists in a game like this.
Yeah, he did. He did. He led all scorers in the game with the East had Travion Henna getting 21 points, coming in second for the points scored, and then a couple players, Willie Jack and Quinn Tucker, coming in at 19 points, scoring the game, and also Killian Albert off the bench for the West, getting 19 points, and I'm leaving everyone out. Malik Madrick at the bench, getting 19 points, and of course, as I say that, I look over and I see that Stanley Townsend got 23 points on the East, so I'm messing up on all these points scored.
That was a
Everybody
big
getting
night
some
for
points tonight.
guards, small guards picked early in the draft before last because we had Jankowskis win MVP and Stanley Townsend coming off the bench with a game high 9 assists and 23 points.
I know.
Uh, Jacksonville prospect looking really good. He would definitely round out that amazing potential big three that Jacksonville has with Luke Blakemore and Mickey Alexander, we just talked about in the All Star game,
Mhm.
and second year player Stanley Townsend in the Rising Stars game.
And the points that he got 32 minutes, I think most of that was because, do you want to pronounce his name? Augustin Damagibrishchev got 6 fouls in the game and fouled out, only playing 12 minutes. Fouling out in an All Star game is something. That is
And there
that
were two for the East All
there
Stars
were there
because Ruben
were
Limez also fouled out in 19
also
minutes.
fouled out with 19
Limez,
minutes.
I had uh, scouted as a very high pick because he had one of the highest steal scores I'd ever seen my scouts turn in. It looks like he got no steals in the game, so perhaps he would got his hand caught with his hand in the cookie jar a few too many times in that,
Yeah. No
forcing some playing
steals.
times onto the bench with Stanley getting 32 minutes and Peter, oh my goodness, Peter Tohopa Kalinga getting
Yeah.
31 off the bench, probably filling in for those fouled out guys.
That's right. He disqualified. He's only been throwing out one game this year and is getting a good point 0.4 steals per game in 10.6 minutes. So that may go up if he wants to get more playing time. in the regular season. But definitely in this game, Tomas was a player of the game for the West. Definitely led that team. Like I said, 23 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. A pretty solid game for him. Willie Jack also a prime performer on the West Coast team, getting 19 points again, 5 rebounds, uh, 5 rebounds, 2 assists for him. So some pretty solid games. A lot, like I said, both games kind of surprised me in how even everything was. It really wasn't really a standout huge game out of anybody.
Yeah, I called in chat a few days ago for a wet blowout by the West team. So the East team may have put that up on the bulletin board and came ready to play. I was
Yeah.
pretty pleased with two of my guys. He's mentioned Willie Jack and Killian Albert.
Mhm,
But both of them came ready to shoot threes, and that's
mhm.
exactly what we want from them in Calgary. They will have all the opportunity in the world to jack threes the rest of this season since we got rid of all of the veterans at the trade deadline.
Yes, there'll be plenty of threes to be had, and I do have to give it to both teams from behind the arc. And this may be what's coming in the SIBA. 62.2% for the West Coast 3-point shooting, 68.8% from the East Coast. So there was a lot of threes put up, and a lot of them went through the basket.
Yeah.
This is really exciting, if you ask me.
Yeah, maybe time to move that line back.
Let's not get crazy. Maybe we should raise the basket to 12 feet too. No, no, definitely not. Now that just took a quick look back on the regular All Star game, the West, while they didn't put up as many 3-point shots, the West shot 71.4% and the East shot
Wow.
54.5%. So there was a lot of 3-point action going on,
Well,
and I
there
need
are
to
some
find out.
monstrous drivers in that game
Yeah.
that I'm sure were causing extra tension for kickouts for easy threes in that game.
Yeah, it did seem like that, and also from the line, the teams just shot really well in these All Star games. Again, I know it's an All Star game, so that's normally what happens. Is a little less defense, a little people play a little bit off of everybody, but it still was a very impressive showing on both the rookie game and the regular All Star game from the shooting perspective on all these teams. So it's very impressive if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, the fans got what they came for that game.
They definitely did. Now, you had mentioned on our talk about the All-Star Games that you think that there's a couple of guys that possibly should have been in this game and were not. Who do you think should have gotten the All-Star call and got left behind and got to take the whole week off?
That's a really good question. One thing I do want to give kudos to the engine for picking the All Stars this year. I think this is the closest year we've ever had between who I thought should have been and who actually made it.
Mhm,
I thought the only egregious mistake was picking Charlton Winfield Jr. From Houston for the second
mhm,
center spot in the
mhm,
West over Josh Gregory. I know Gregory's hurt, and it was probably an injury replacement, and we don't get to see who the CPU would have picked if everyone's healthy, and we
mhm,
know it won't pick any injured players. So I'm going to assume that's where we went from that. But I feel like both John Walker of the Mambas and Mike Rhodes of Phoenix would have been better picks to
mhm,
fill Gregory's shoes. But Gregory, I'd love to have it noted on his player card somewhere that he should have been an All Star. He just had a nagging injury at the wrong time of the year.
yeah,
He is having a monster season.
uh,
Um, the
yeah. So
guys that I had in that, first off, I wanted to mention the guy from each conference I would have picked that I felt were the off. And those were Ivan Ashman in the East and Nick LaRue in the West. So I
mhm,
did want to throw out there that those guys, I felt bad. I couldn't squeeze them onto my team either, but I
mhm,
did want to recognize the seasons they are having.
yeah,
Um, just looking at the starting lineups, the big differences I had was I would have had Ryan Ward in the starting lineup instead of um, Ashante Tubbs. I do
mhm,
think Tubbs deserved to be an All Star, but then he went out and had a monster game to show me that he did deserve to be in there. I would have had OJ Smith in the starting lineup replacing Ryan Ward, who was injured.
mhm,
Um, and then in the West, again, my starting lineup and the one that started was identical down to one player, or I'm sorry, down to two players in the West. I thought Adam Leach deserved to be in the starting lineup over Deion Nicholas. Deion Nicholas then wins MVP. So maybe the game was right and I was wrong there. And
Right.
I had Byron Hooks in the starting lineup over Rob Scott. He's got an edge in games played and a minor edge in BER. And though, as again, I'm sorry, I meant to mention this at the start. For me, the All Star are the 12 best people having the best year this year without
Mhm.
regards to expectation and prior performance. I think Rob Scott's probably the best player in SIBA, but I think Byron Hooks has had a better first half of this season than he has.
Yeah, Byron Hooks has definitely been lighting it up this season with 26.5 points and 6.2 rebounds a game and 2.3 steals a game, which is just unbelievable. Getting on both
And
sides
arguably the
of the ball.
prettiest shot chart in the league. If you
Yes.
any SIBA GMs go in and look at that shot chart, it'll make you cry.
And for those of you that can't see the shot chart right now, it is all green except for one of the corner threes on the left-hand side that is yellow, and he's still shooting over 40% from that that spot right there. It is unreal when you look at what he's been doing this year. It is beautiful. Yeah, I agree with you. I remember a couple seasons ago when Dean got hurt. I think like literally the game before the All Star break and was not on the All Star team, and it broke my heart. So I know what you're talking about when you're talking about Brigady not being there. He is better now, so he's ready to play right now. He's off the injury time, but he is having a great year with 22.3 points per game and 10 and a half uh, rebounds a game, but just could not find his way into the All Star game this year because of a nagging injury that was getting him. So that's always a tough thing. As you said, we don't know if he was originally picked and then replaced. We don't know. And Christian Winfield, again, another guy that I gave up on in Atlanta,
I thought you
and
might have
decided
some
to,
thoughts on him making an All-Star game.
yeah, decided
When
now
you
he
let him
he
go, what odds would you have given him on ever appearing in an All-Star game?
I think it starts with a zero and ends with a zero. And there he is, like about 7 years, 4 years later, he is in the All Star game, and he is having a very great. I've been following him. He's having a good season. He's had a couple good seasons now in Houston. So I wish him the best and hope that he continues to do well. But yeah, he was one of those. He's a big boy, 7'3", 249, and that's the reason that I drafted him was because of how so he's just a big boy to fill up the lane for you in defense and all that. And
Yeah,
he's doing fine. And congratulations to him. Him and Millette were the two that have formerly been on my team that are in the All Star game, and love to see him there. And just sad that they couldn't have done it with Atlanta, but you can't keep everybody, right?
yeah.
Got to
Got
have
to move
some.
good players to get good players. I
Yeah,
did
that's
want to
right.
shout out real quick a couple other injury replacements I would have had. I can't fix their player cards in game, but Ryan Ward should have been in the All-Star game. Eddie Henderson should have been in the All-Star game. Who else did I have? And Jamar DeGray should have been in the All Star game.
Mm.
I would have brought in Calvin Selleck to replace him for an injury, but I do feel like all of those guys deserve placements, but had nagging injuries at the wrong time of the year for the CPU to pick them and add it to their card as they deserve to have.
Yep, and hopefully next year those guys will be in the All Star game, and I mean they've been in ones in the past too. So it's one of those things where you will probably see them again sometime in the future as long as they don't get injured. But we all know that once some of these players, once they start getting injured, it just rolls and rolls and rolls, and another injury after another injury after another injury. So hopefully that's not the case for these high level players. Because that's the one thing that I hate to see is when the high level players, they're stars in the league, the guys that put up points, the guys that make teams run, when they get hurt, it's just not fun for anybody. When you're playing a team, you want to beat the best version of that team. You don't want to beat them
Exactly.
because they're best players on the bench and street clothes. You want to beat them in their best to show that you are the best because you're beating the best. So we don't want to see too many of those big injuries coming up. And I know my team loved having the All Star break at this point because we had 6 players with the little red men by them going into this All Star break, and it was just the last couple of games before the All Star break. I literally limped into this All Star break in my Atlanta attack because I mean it was just one after another. And I looked up, I was like, why did I lose all these games? I was like, oh my god, everybody's hurt.
Yeah.
Some people getting some very significant minutes that have not seen a lot of play all year long. It's not a good recipe for victories on that one.
Let me run through my benches real quick since we talked about the All-Star
Yeah.
starters.
Mhm,
In the East, I had Luke Blakemore, Albert
mhm,
Renault, Mihail
mhm,
Berlin, Ashante Tubbs, and Jason Fledman as my second five, and
mhm,
Buddy Mason and Jean-Marie Villeneuve as
mhm,
my wild cards.
mhm,
And in the West, I had my second five as Josh Bergery, with John Walker in as an injury replacement, Abazio Kokbari, Dion Nicholas, Rob Scott, and Alan Butler, all of whom played very well. And
mhm,
then as my wild cards, I had Jamar DeGray with Calvin Selleck in as his injury replacement, and
mhm,
Josh Morris in place of Michael Mellett.
mhm,
Um, the numbers are undeniable, but
mhm.
and I it feels a little weird to have Michael playing in the West All Star game after being in the West for a day and a half.
Yeah, he had not been on the Mamba very long. I think he had, let me look this up right now. 4 games,
Four
all off
games.
the bench, all off the bench for
That's two and a
the
half
Mamba.
games more than I gave him credit for. Sorry about that,
Yeah,
Michael.
yeah, and so he had played a full couple minutes in the West. Like he had a couple DNPs when he first got over the Mamba before they got their stuff, but he played 4 significant games for them, and of course he went ahead and put up 23, 10, 27, and 10 points. So I mean he still scores. He can just put points up on the board. That's for sure.
He
He
absolutely
is.
can. He's Magic
He,
Mike for a reason.
he is a solid player, and I knew one day he'd get there. It just took a little while for him to find his feet in the SIBA,
Yep.
but he did get there. That is for sure. He is one of the elite players, and is an All Star and a Western All Star, and managed to score 10 points in 8 minutes in the All Star game. So I mean, like I said, he
He's a
he just
bucket.
finds a way. He finds a way to get those buckets for sure, for sure. Now we turn ourselves to the quote unquote second half of the season. I know we're way past halfway point in the season,
Right.
but that means playoffs are right around the corner, and we have got a lot of. I'm telling you, the East has got to be one of the conferences. I mean, it is just stacked up there in the top. I'm not talking about stacked up in a good way. I'm talking about just a lot of teams that are on the same level, not the same level as the Western teams, but they're on the same level. And the difference between play-in game and number one in the East is only a couple games.
Absolutely. Just look one quick look at the standings. First off, oddly, it seems like the play-in or not play-in is almost settled. There's a four-game gap already between Milwaukee, currently 10th, and Chicago, currently 11th. So
Mhm,
unless Chicago gets hot, Chicago or Columbus, who is even in the standings with Chicago,
mhm,
unless they get super hot real quick and combine that with a swoon elsewhere, I
yep,
think the 10 teams that are going to appear in the postseason are all pretty much set. But as you said, there's 5 games in the loss column separating one from 10. So that's going to jumble. That's probably going to go down to the wire to see who ends up seated where in the East.
Like I said, in the last couple of games, I've my team, just take for an example, has lost 3 of the last 4, and we've fallen from second place, like right behind first place, down to fourth place, and it didn't take but that little swoon for us to fall pretty significantly, and
And
we could
yet, and
fall
yet,
further.
you're tied exactly in the loss column.
Yep, man, we're tied. And we just played a couple less games now, which is surprisingly because early in the season we had played a whole lot more games than everybody else. Now we've played a whole lot less games. So the SIBA scheduling coming in again. In in the
It's a
in the
thankless job.
Yeah, it is. It is. In the West Coast, it is a fight to the top right now. The best teams in the league by far are in the West. You could probably say the best 5 teams in the league, from the Mamba all the way down to the Bears. Uh, they are just some great teams. You can even add Houston in there. They are a pretty good team too, very good
Absolutely.
team too. Um, it is just. I don't know. I mean, I know that Kelly over there watching us from behind the scenes is wondering how he can get above the Mamba as they are just oof, they are looking as good as ever.
Absolutely, and yet there's only a one-game lead.
Mhm,
Any injuries that I feel like that Mamba team is fairly top-heavy with talent,
mhm,
with some questions on depth. The compromise you have to make when you have that much top-end talent. One significant injury, Abe Hirsch is 34, 35 now. He gets a 10-game injury. That would be tough on him. So that's going to be competitive. I feel like it's going to be down to the wire battle for the top two seeds between the Mamba Coyotes and Scorpions. I
yep,
feel like there's another middle of the pack battle there between the Outlaws, Bears. Maybe the Stampede can work their way back into it.
yep,
But I think the top eight is likely set in the
mhm,
West, other than order. And then there's like a five-team battle for 9 through whatever that is, 9 through 14.
mhm. Yeah,
That's going
yeah.
to determine who gets in and who gets out of the play-in.
Right now, Denver's riding a four-game winning streak to bid that 10th spot in the play-in game. But Minnesota is 2 games back in the loss column, equal in the win column. Uh, Minnesota's right there, and then Seattle is not too much further back. They're a little bit back because they've
Yeah,
lost four in a row, so they kind of fell a little back. So Minnesota's the one that can spoil the party for Denver and possibly Dallas in there in that play-in game, and we'll see how that goes. But if Denver keeps winning, they may be looking at themselves right on up there with the other playoff teams. You never
I
know.
know
You never
they've had a disappointing season thus far, but I think there's the time left in the season to rescue that for at least a solid play-in berth. And they very easily, well, not very easily, with some luck, they could get a home seed in the play-in. Um,
know.
but I think I would give them the highest odds out of those
Mhm,
five teams of being in the play-in.
mhm,
And well, of course, none of us can ever forget that Minnesota has Rick Lawson, who's the
mhm.
best scorer in the history of the league on the team. So I think that
Nice.
gives them pretty much enhanced odds of getting in there as well.
It sure does. So we got some action going in, which leads us into the next version of the Dirty South podcast, and we are going to be doing a little draft. That should be a lot of fun, shouldn't it, Van?
That's right. We're gonna draft teams. We're gonna take the teams that are the time we do it, the teams that are likely to make the playoffs or play in at that point in time, and we'll do a draft between us, picking teams by the number of playoff wins we think they're gonna get, and
Mhm,
then we'll settle up at the end of the season and see whose team won actually more playoff games. So it'll be significant by who do you think is going to win a title, and then
mhm,
as we've mentioned, we think the three best teams are all in the West. But does
mhm.
an East team filter in there? Because one of those is going to make the finals and win four more games than one of those teams in the West.
And
I
you do have to
absolutely
remember,
will.
and you can't forget last season when those higher seeds in the Eastern Conference made it all the
All
way into the
filled.
finals and into the finals and everything. So it's not just because you're at the top does not mean that you're going to get all the way through. It may
Yeah,
not
I
end up in
probably will
anything.
overpick Milwaukee based on what they did last year. Because if they sneak in there, who knows how far they'll go.
Who knows? They definitely had the secret sauce in the playoffs last year, always making it interesting. And maybe this will be the year when the East can break through and win over one of these high Eastern or high Western teams. I don't know. If I was a betting man, I would probably be putting my money down on a Western Conference team winning it all. But
Absolutely. Phoenix
maybe
is
that's
highly motivated. They
yeah.
have not won in more time than is normal for that franchise,
Mhm.
and they have the best big three in the league. They will definitely be gunning, trying to get back and get another chip.
And I also know the Coyotes are tired of finishing second fiddle, so they are definitely going to be looking for a championship to put on their mantle.
One thing I
And
can guarantee you is that Calgary will not figure into this in any way.
You never know. You never know. There could be a secret something or other coming in there, a super wild card that we're going to sneak in. It's changing the rules in the SIBA to make sure the Calgary gets in there. It's going to be in the future. In the future, you're going to make it there one day. One day,
One day.
rebuilding teams. So you got a chance for a very high draft pick, though. That's
And
always the
I could
start
not
for a
be
draft.
more thrilled with this year's rookie class.
That's right. That's right. Well, another one in the books. Congratulations to all the Western All Stars on both the rookies and the old timers, shall we say? Not quite so old timers, but the rookies and the regular All Stars. For Western winning both games, and it's always fun to take a look back at that game, as it's always just a fun little diversion from the regular season.
Absolutely. Everyone needed the break. 3-2-1 Cancun.
That's right. Let's get there. Let's get there. It is as the weather's starting to warm up in real life. Let's warm it up in the SIBA as we get closer to playoff time. Van, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us
Jeremy,
in here. Kelly, thanks for being behind the scenes. We do appreciate you getting everything working for us, going that, and we will see you again in no time. I'll tell you, we'll be back before you know it, right here on the SIBA Dirty South podcast. Thanks, man.